And we're live.
Let's talk about the shad spawn right now. Now, I don't care where you live. It doesn't matter if it's the Northeast. It doesn't matter if you're here in the Southeast. It doesn't matter if you're out West. There's a lot of stuff going on in your body of water right now. You've got fish that are probably trying to move up the spawn still. You've definitely got some spawning. I don't care where you live right about now. And then you also have some post spawn fish. Now, in the middle of all of that, you're probably about to walk up on one of the most crucial times of the year, one of the most magical times of the year, is during the shad spawn. It doesn't matter what type of shad you have in your body of water. It doesn't matter what the forage fish is. It doesn't matter if it's threadfin. I would say probably if you live in the Northeast, you probably don't have quite a shad spawn coming up, but it will happen here soon. But there's Cisco's and there's perch and there's all these different types of shad forages of shad forages that are going to be spawning here soon. And tonight we're going to talk about how that affects the fish. We're going to talk about 5 things that you need to consider when fishing during the shad spawn. First of all, what is it? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about where you can look for it. We're going to talk about what it looks like and the baits that you can use when you have a shad spawn. I guess that was 5. I wrote them down. I probably should have read them to you instead of trying to remember what it is. But what I wrote down is what it is, when it happens, what it looks like, how to target it, which means what baits you should be using, um, and where to go during the shad spawn. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Like always, I'm watching the chat on the app. So if you've got any questions, just drop them in the chat on the app, and we'll take record of it. If we don't get to it tonight, I'll always try to address those in the community section tomorrow morning. The shad spawn. Now, just as I mentioned, there's all kind of stuff going on the lake right now. You've got fish that are moving up. There's fish that's spawning. And there's fish that have already spawned and starting out to move out into the main lake and start to move their way towards their summer patterns. The coolest thing about the shad spawn is the fact that the shad spawn most of the time happens just as the fish have spawned and starting to move out to the main lake, which is really interesting. It's just kind of crazy how Mother Nature makes it where right when the fish need to eat the most and when they need to recover the most and get the most protein recovery, that's exactly when Mother Nature makes it to where the shad they cross migration routes. And that's basically what happens just about everywhere you live. Now, where I live, we do have shad, but I can tell you, I don't ever remember having a threadfin shad spawn. I don't know if it's because we didn't know what to look for or we just skipped the whole thing, but I've never actually seen a threadfin shad spawn here in the Carolinas. And what we do have is the blueback herring, which is still a shad species, still a shad forage. But we do get that blueback herring spawn, and I'll talk about that a little bit in the mix as well. But the first thing you probably want to identify wherever you live is what is the shad forage for that particular lake. Now, once you figure out what the shad forage is for your particular lake, a good way to find out when the shad spawn, I guarantee you there's going to be some type of bait and tackle store close to you that sells whatever the shad forage is in that body of water. That's a good place to get good intel on when this is going to happen where you live. Now, I'm going to give you a baseline in this discussion of what water temperatures and what time of the year you probably can expect to see it. But probably the best resource is going to be those that local knowledge, because even within my state, even within lakes that are very close of here in my proximity where I live, the blueback heron spawn can go off at different times of the year. It can be a couple weeks apart. And out of all the things that we'll talk about in this app, all the things we'll talk about in the school, this Shad Forge conversation has probably the smallest window of opportunity for you to capitalize on many different levels. It has the smallest window of opportunity that you can capitalize on for as the time of day. It has the smallest window that you can capitalize as far as the month within the month. When we're talking about the spawn, bass have been spawning here in the Carolinas since the second week in March, first and second weekend in March. It's definitely happening now, 30 days later. And I would continue to sight fish well into May Some of my best sight fishing trips have been as we get into May and things start to get a little bit funky. So, you got like a 90-day period for when that works. When we're talking about catching fish like back this winter, 30, 40, 50 foot deep, that period that you could use to practice and execute on that and get some reps in, you're talking about it's a 90 to 120-day window. Honestly, you can catch fish like that all year long, especially if you got smallmouth or spotted bass. But there's a long window for you to practice and gather information about those techniques. When it comes to the shad spawn, opinion, it's very, very, very small. In fact, even let me tell you, I'm 42. I've fished all my life, and every year I have to make sure that I spend a little bit of time on our herring spawn, because if I wait a week or two, or if we have an event where I'm traveling, I might miss the meat of the herring spawn. And you really have to be on the water when that happens, in that window, that water temperature window or that moon phase window. We'll talk about that in a little bit. When that happens, or you can almost miss the whole thing. Of course, it lingers for a little bit, but that meat of it, where you can get those good reps in, it fades extremely fast. So that's my introduction to the shad spawn. Let's dive into what exactly we're talking about. Mark, are you seeing comments? I don't see anything pop. Oh, there it goes. My bad. I had to.
Yeah, you
I
might
had
have to
to.
refresh.
Yeah, I had to refresh. I got it. All right. Let's dive into what this is. So first of all, what is the shad spawn? We have the blueback heron. I'm gonna. Even though blueback heron is really different shad species, I'm gonna kind of encapsulate that into tonight's conversation. But most of the time during the shad spawn, we're talking about threadfin shad. Most of the time, that's gonna be the context of it for the most part. There's a lot of different other shad species, but most of our bodies of water are going to have this threadfin shad species. And so, what is it? This is a conversation that I'm actually going to pose a question to you guys about, that I'm starting to notice, and it's starting to hear a little bit more rumblings about it. What's crazy is I remember when I first started fishing, I never heard of a shad spawn until 15 years ago. It's like it didn't exist. I don't remember my dad talking about a shad spawn in the 90s. I don't ever remember a tournament in the 90s where the shad spawn popped up. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe around that 2010-ish time frame, 8-ish, people start talking about this shad spawn. And so I was like, what the heck is this? What are we talking about? What is going on? What is it? And so I literally had to do research on that. So the shad spawn is exactly what you think it is. This is the time of the year where the shad, the forest species in your body of water, starts to do the reproductive deal just like bass do. So a lot of times, and I'm jumping ahead when I say what is it, this tip, I'm gonna have to talk a little bit about all five of these categories. I'm gonna talk about where it happens. I'm gonna talk about the water temperature, or that time frame where it usually happens. But it's simply, the shad spawn is just simply when shad are starting to do their reproductive deal. Now, here's a question. Let me go ahead and ask this question for you. I'd love to see what you guys say in the chat. If you're in Facebook and you got the answer for this, I'd love to hear what you think and your perspective. Likewise on YouTube. We always talk about bass during the pre-spawn, what that looks like, how they act, where they go. When it comes to forest species, even when we talk about panfish, brim, blueback heron, threadfin shad, whatever the fish eat on your body of water, we tend to only talk about them during their spawn. Do you think it's worth having a conversation or studying what shad species do before they spawn? We don't ever talk about a pre-spawn, a pre-shad spawn. And I heard that phrase just last week at Smith Lake when we were talking, just in conversation in Bagline. Had this conversation about 4 weeks ago when we were at Lake Hartwell, because I caught my fish on what I was calling a heron spawn. And I think it's worth having a conversation about that I've never heard us discuss before. If we really pull back the layers and started to study what shad species do before they spawn, do they have similar habits? Just like bass do. We know bass will start to suspend high in the water column. They'll try to soak up the sun rays. They're looking for warmer water. Do you think it's worth having a discussion and studying what shad do before they spawn? I think we should. I don't have any of the answers for any of that I just said just then, but it's something that I want to start to follow over the next few years. And I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. You can drop it in the chat, you can drop it in the comment section of these videos. I'd love to hear what you think about that because we only talk about it during the spawn. So, and then what do they do after the spawn? What do they have a post spawn period? What is it? I think we just in fishing we have such a tendency to just say things. Like I was talking about the pre-spawn when we were having that conversation a couple weeks ago, or talking about the pre-spawn, and it's like, well, what is the pre-spawn? You can't just say, well, it's the time before they spawn. Like, what is it? Like, what really is the pre-spawn? And so I think it's worth identifying exactly what we're talking about when we talk about the spawn. And then what if we took it a layer deeper and started talking about what happens with shad and blueback herring before they actually spawn? Okay, so I want to talk about that. When does this happen? When do the shad spawn? It's worth always looking for it, in my opinion. It may be a little bit different in the Northeast, but I think it's worth looking for and seeking out anytime the water temperature is 65 degrees and warmer. 65 degrees and warmer, you can almost guarantee you there's some type of shad spawn activity somewhere on that lake. It can be a little bit colder. It can be a little bit warmer. But somewhere in 3 to 4 degree range, give or take a little bit, I would say you can probably start to expect to see some type of shad spawn activity. 65 degrees. Could be on the front end of that, could be on the back end of that. And for sure, if you've had 65 degrees or warmer for any kind of extended period of time, meaning 2 weeks or so, you're going to have it somewhere. There's going to be a shad spawn. Okay. The moment that it touches 65, maybe not. If you've had 65, 63, 64, 65, 64, 66, that within a degree or two for a prolonged period of time, I'm going to say anywhere from 10 to 14 days, it's probably starting to happen. Okay. Now, when that happens, I'm calling wind with water temperature. Wind could be obviously, we can base that off the calendar, but that jumps around a lot. It jumps around. I've seen the water temperature hit 60 degrees in first week in March. I've seen it hit 65 degrees the last week in April. I don't like to use the calendar for time frames because it's too broad. It can be the last week in February where I live all the way to the last week in April, 60-day period, which is a lot of time. I like to look at it by water temperature. Can't deny water temperature. Things happen. Water temperature and day length. 65 degrees in November, no, you're not going to have a shad spawn. But it's the fact that we've had that winter solstice and everything starts, the days start to get longer in conjunction with the water temperature warming up. You're probably going to start to see some activity with the shad. Now, what does it look like? This is something, it took me years to figure it out. Now, I know some people are going to be laughing. Well, why are you teaching if it took you years? Like, I promise y'all, it was literally until like 2013, 14 before I ever saw physically what a shad spawn looks like. Now, where I live with the blueback heron, seen that 1,000 times. I know what that looks like. It's a little different than the shad spawn, in my opinion. Love to hear what y'all think. It looks a little bit different. You don't see the blueback in the same way that you see threadfin. Threadfin, you physically see them almost fizzing the top of the water at times. And you'll see them if you have a lake with grass in them. The shad spawn will oftentimes be in the hydrilla. The shad spawn will oftentimes be in the lily pads. They'll use some type of vegetation to spawn on. Why that is, we'll have to get a biologist to figure it out because I don't know. But I know that's what I'm going to start looking around. They spawn offshore oftentimes. If you got offshore grass, they'll spawn in that. They spawn. This sounds a lot like, if you think about it, it sounds a lot like bass. When bass spawn, they like to be beside something. They like to be beside a stump, lily pad stem. Even if it's dead, they like to spawn anything, a can on the bottom, a golf ball, anything. They like to spawn beside something. If you think about it, shad are really doing the same thing. They'll spawn beside grass. They'll spawn. They'll waller out a hole in the hydrilla, spawn in that. And oftentimes, right at the break of daylight, you can see sort of like this fizzing or popping. Oh, I say fizzing, but they're just kind of just splashing on top of the water. I probably should get you a couple videos to post in the community section or on a tab inside the app. But I'll try to show you what it physically looks like. They can spawn on laydowns. I just recently, or wasn't recently, 2 years ago, I had a tournament at Pickwick. Caught all my fish on the shad spawn on laydowns. So they can use that. They really like anything that can provide shade for the shad fry. So that can be docks, whether that's fixed position or floating docks. Because when the eggs hatch, the shad fry can use that dock as protection. Same that goes with lily pads, the same it goes with hydrilla or any type of grass forage species. But I've seen it in any and all of the grasses. A docks is you can guarantee they're going to be on the docks, any type of dock. And they also like to use seawalls. Seawalls is a good place where you look for a shad spawn. You can look for that flickering first light in the morning. It does not last very long for its flickering or actually seeing the surface activity with shad spawn. It never lasts very long. You have to be on the water at daybreak, preferably before daybreak. You can look for the activity on the surface, seawalls, docks, floating docks, fixed position, any type of grass vegetation, and even riprap. There's some places that you can look. It could be more than that. Feel free to share with people in the comment section of places that you may have seen that I didn't list, but this just gives you a base level knowledge of where you can start to look on your body of water. So you can start thinking right now, okay, my water is 68 degrees. I know I got a bridge with riprap. Why is the riprap good? You got all these little crevices and everything for your shad fry to go into, and then every bridge has shade in the summer. So they can use that shade for protection too. They always, 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 anytime you're talking about post spawn, if you can find anything that provides shade, the shad and the fish use that. Okay, so those are a couple dead giveaways. Surface activity around any of that I just mentioned. Here's another dead giveaway: is bird activity. Egrets, the blue herons. Look for the bird activity to bird dog you. Look for bird activity to bird dog you where the shad spawn's going down. That sounds so redundant. Look for birds to bird dog you for shad spawn activity. You're going to see the white birds. I think those are called the egrets. That's what I call them. That's what we're going to call them tonight. The white birds, the big white ones with the orange beaks and long necks and stuff. Him and the blue heron, almost always dead giveaway that there's a shad spawn. And there'll always be a lot of them around. Then we need to have a conversation about blueback heron because it's a little different. I don't really see. I'm not saying this doesn't happen, but I don't see the egrets and the blueback and the blue herons on the bluebacks. But for the shad, I do. And so sometimes we just had an event at the Harris Chain a few years ago. I think this was about 3 years ago. I get up every morning as early as I could, and I rode around the lake looking just for the birds. Didn't even need to fish. I just look for the birds. If you notice where those birds are, that's probably where the fish. That's probably where the shad spawning. If you know where the shad spawning, who gonna be there? Boo Boo the bear. Gonna be there looking for them shaddy boos. All right. So those are some dead giveaways to kind of point you in the right direction of where you can look. Now, let's say I got a tournament this Saturday. I can only practice Friday, and I can only practice Friday from, let's just say, I got to drop my kids off at school, which happens to me, and I can't get out there at the crack of dawn. So I'm not going to get an award at 9 o'clock. What should I do to find this so-called shad spawn that you talk about, Brian? What should I do next? So this is what I like to do. There's a couple things. There's a couple ways for you to find where the shad is spawning without actually visually being able to see them on the surface. And this is something that well, number one, just growing up in this area, the same thing happens with blueback herring. And two, growing up around people that live on lakes where there's more of a shad spawn at. The spinnerbait. The spinnerbait, sometimes a crankbait too, but anything with a lot of flash that you have on it, it could be a chatterbait, any kind of bait that you have that has a lot of flash, the shad will actually try to spawn with that bait. So you can use a spinnerbait with big blades on it and just throw it, not with intentions to catch fish. Sounds crazy, but the shad will actually find that flash and follow your bait back to the boat. So what you do, you just throw it going down the bank, throw it going down the bank, and just as you're bringing that bait back to the boat, you're going to look at your bait right before you pull it out of the water, and oftentimes you can see the shad bumping into the spinner bait. Sometimes you can feel it on a long cast. A lot of times you just watch the spinner bait come back to the boat. Doesn't matter what color spinnerbait, just as long as you got a spinnerbait that's got some flash in it, they're going to try to spawn with that spinnerbait. It's the craziest thing ever, but that's what happens. I've done it with a crankbait before, but it's almost always something with a lot of flash. And the thing that I had that has the most flash is going to be a spinnerbait. So if you're ever out there and you're trying to figure out how to find a shad spawn and you can't get out there first thing in the morning and you want to figure out how you can bird dog that, sometimes you can still find the egrets later in the day. But the telltale way is to get you a spinner bait, throw it around in the grass, throw it around in the shade pockets, and get the shad to follow your spinner bait back to the boat. That's a good way for you to try to find it. Let's talk about how to target it. How to target it. And when we talk about how to target it, I've kind of already got into it. First thing in the morning, we're gonna look for anywhere that's got shade. We're gonna look for most of the time, if it's got grass, you'll find it. If your lake has grass, the shad is going to spawn into that. If your lake has docks, they are using the docks 100%. And then I found a shad spawn on just nothing before. It can be just like on like a mud bank. I found it on that before. When we go to not Toho Kissimmee, but when we go to the Harris chain, a lot of times the shad spawn on the Harris chain is on the hard spots. So on the Harris chain, it's got a lot of grass, a lot of Kissimmee grass around the edge of the lake, and there's docks and stuff. But anywhere that there's hard bottom, that's where the shad spawns at. Not saying that they don't spawn in the Kissimmee grass or the hydrilla, but oftentimes where you find the egrets diving, looking for shad is going to be anywhere where there's no grass, anywhere where there's a hard bank. They'll spawn on that. So it's not limited to that, and you'll have to be creative, and you have to kind of watch Mother Nature, because she doesn't follow a rule book. She gives us a guide, but she doesn't follow the rule book's a guide, but not the gospel truth. But keep your eyes open to activity that you might see. How we're going to target it? There's a couple baits that definitely shine. I would say during during the post spawn period. Overall, here's 3 baits that you can almost count on. I mean, it just doesn't matter the type of lake that you go to. It really doesn't. One is going to be the crankbait. All your shad imitators, we're about to go into this period now where your shad imitators are going to be the hub of everything that you do for this period of time. Crankbaits are the best shad imitators that we have in our tackle box. I guess maybe the minnow. Shad imitators. crankbaits. And most of the time when I've caught them on shad spawn on a crankbait, it's been a square bill, but it's not limited to that. Any of your crankbaits, and listen, this is one time that I have found that like color matters more than any other time. And the whites, like throwing a white crankbait with a dark back, like it really, really does make a difference. Crankbaits, the jerk bait, same thing. I like whites. It really does matter. I've had like been throwing chartreuse with black during the shad spawn. Can it work? Absolutely. But I've had these periods where that don't work. The chartreuse black don't work. But the white belly, the more white the better. Same thing with the jerk bait. I've caught them with different colored jerk baits during shad spawn, but there's something about that one that's got a white sides on it. It seems to work a little bit better oftentimes. Jerk bait's gonna work good. The chatterbait's gonna play. Same thing. White chatterbait. What? Hey, if you're from Belton, South Carolina, your whats are gonna be one you want to throw on your chatterbait. A buzzbait can play. A white frog, and that could be a buzz toad type frog. You know what I mean by the buzz toad? Throw it back, just reel it back. It could be your walking frog or popping frog. Can play during the shad spawn. It also can be any of your walking style top waters, like your Zara Spooks, um, Sexy Dogs, Vixens, all of the loud knocking plugs that plays during the shad spawn. Did I say spinnerbait already? We definitely know spinnerbait plays. My two biggest grabs are going to be a square bill and spinnerbait. First two I grab during shad spawn. Third one's going to be a jerkbait. Those play. No questions asked. But if you gave me three that I could throw, it'd be the square bill crankbait, it'll be the jerkbait, and the spinnerbait. Actually, in order, it would be crankbait, spinnerbait, jerkbait. Why those? And then why in that order? The crankbait, keep in mind during the shad spawn, they do a lot of slashing at the bait. And so some with treble hooks, you cannot like the spinnerbait, they knock it and push it and roll over it, jump over the top of it, and sometimes they don't get it. You don't get to do that with that crankbait. You don't get to do that with the jerkbait. I'm going to at least snag you for a little bit of time. And I'd rather have a little bit of time snagged up with you than no time at all. So with the spinnerbaits, the hookup ratio is not quite as good. Same thing with the chatterbait. They'll jump over it, they'll push it, they'll roll around it, do all kind of stuff. But with that treble hook bait, I got him. I got him. It's just my hookup ratio is going to be better. My landing ratio might not be better, but if you give me a chance to hook you, my landing, I got a better chance of landing you. I'm going to post some videos. I'm actually going to do some voiceover with some videos of tournaments that I've had here in the past, fishing all three of those baits. There's one on Gunnersville, I caught him on square bill and a jerk bait. There's one on Eufaula where I caught him on spinner bait, and also the one on Pickwick where it was a crankbait and a spinner bait that I caught him on. So I'm gonna next week we're gonna do some voiceover and kind of show you exactly what I was fishing, so you can get a visual of what was going on during the shad spawn there for me. So did we go through what I used? Yeah. So spinnerbait in order, my grabs, and then we're going to get to questions here. Um, crankbait, square bills, number one. Number two is the spinnerbait for me. Number three is going to be jerkbait. Everything else falls in order, just however it works by then. But anything that's white and anything that represents a shad could play for the shad spawn, no matter where you live. Let's talk a little bit about the blueback heron. The Alabama rig, I see you, Mac Toon. I haven't had good luck with the Alabama rig during the shad spawn. Have you? Was that a suggestion, or was that you telling us that's something you should throw? I haven't had a good time with Alabama rig. I do like baits that I can work fast this time of the year. I should have mentioned that. I do like baits that are more erratic this time of the year. One thing about the when and the where, you remember I told you, like, even though I've fished all my life, there's still some questions that I have about the shad spawn. One being about orientation within the lake. I found the shad spawn in the back of creeks, and I found the shad spawn on the main lake before. And I haven't found a pattern that says this is the way that you find the shad spawn more guaranteed. I'm about to push the conversation in a direction towards the blueback heron spawn, and I 1000% have intel to show you where to look and what you can almost eliminate or not even find any blueback heron spawn at home. So blueback heron, if we go through those categories that I just had, the what is it, the when, what it looks like, what is it, same exact thing. Now the blueback herons do seem to start spawning earlier and earlier every year. If it's 60 degrees, I'm not going to say that the blueback heron is spawning, but I will say you probably want to start thinking about it. And something is starting to happen that never happened when I was younger. I honestly believe that we have bass that feed on the blueback herring spawn before they actually before the bass actually spawn. So there's a pre-spawn herring bite. Growing up in May, that was your period. After the fish spawn, that was when you started to fish the herring spawn. And that doesn't necessarily work that way anymore. I'm not saying that you don't catch post spawn fish on the blueback herring, but what I am saying is if a water temperature and the moon, I want to talk about that a little bit. If it lines up to about 60 degrees, 60 to 62, you probably need to be thinking about it. That's you probably want to be thinking about it. So, but the blueback heron, when 60 degrees, that can be as early as March, that can be as late as May. Um, what it looks like, the heron definitely looks a little bit different. I personally don't ever see blueback heron spawn and see surface activity with those. On our lakes, blueback heron use points. They use clay points. It's what predominantly they use. And on some lakes, if it's got rock, maybe they use more rock. I've seen a little bit of it around riprap. Oftentimes, I'll see it at the boat ramp, around the riprap, around the concrete at the boat ramp. You'll see the herring spawn there. Usually, you won't find fish around it. Usually, you won't find fish around the herring on the boat ramp, but you will 1000% see the blueback spawning. You have to look down in the water, and a lot of times you'll just see some bait going around in circles, literally just going like doing donuts. I don't know how they don't just knock themselves out from being dizzy. They just go around in circles, 100 miles an hour. So yeah, you'll see that visually in the water. Now, when you're out there on the water fishing clay points, you typically won't see that. Typically, I'm not saying you won't. Typically, you won't see that. There's two ways that I find the blueback, and you guys are more than welcome to in the comment section on any of the platforms talk about how you find the blueback here in spawn. Honestly, I just go from point to point, and I stay on the main lake or very close to the main lake. I almost never go to the extreme rear portion of a creek. And I almost never, I want to fish the clearest water that I have available most of the time. Generally speaking, the clearer the water. I don't like to go to the extreme back ends of creeks. I'll fish in some creeks at times, but long points, we have something in the Carolinas we call blow throughs. A lot of other lakes, they call them saddles. That's just a place where you've got an island and a landmass, and then that little piece of land that connects the island to the landmass. They get in that area in between there. I actually did a video about this a couple of years ago or last year. They'll use islands, points. They sometimes even use timber. Sometimes, if it's available, we don't have as much of that anymore like we used to, but sometimes they'll use timber. But they stay towards the main lake, and points is probably usually your best. That's what they use the most. In my experience, fishing Savannah River chain, blueback heron, use points. I don't think there's only maybe, I bet there's less than a dozen lakes in the country that have blueback heron. As far as I know, it's the whole Savannah River chain, which will start with Jocassee, Kiowee, Hartwell, Russell, Clarksville. And that's five. Lanier, that's six. Uh, you got those other lakes, Chateaugue, Burton. I think they're blueback heron lakes. Uh, y'all feel free to jump in there and name any other place that has blueback herring. I can't think of really any. Smith, I hear. I've never been there when the blueback herring spawning, but Smith, I said in the entire country, as far as I know, and maybe a few places out west, and not very many places have blueback herring. And even here within my state, not all the lakes have blueback herring. And so I have learned in the most recent years that some of the other shad species spawn, gizzard shad spawn oftentimes just like blueback herring, clay points, long main lake points. Generally speaking, you're wasting your time fishing back in pockets, fishing, generally speaking, you never know what happens. Fishing, Mother Nature does not fault. There are no absolutes in bass fishing. There are no absolutes, but generally speaking, fishing inside pockets, fishing in creeks, in the backs of coves is not the deal. It's fishing main lake points, humps, saddles, blow throughs, islands, shoal markers, bridge pylons, anything close to the main lake, because a blueback heron is a main lake oriented forage fish. It's what they refer to as pelagic. That's a fancy way of saying they love to just roam in the middle of nowhere on no structure at all. Where your threadfins stay in the creeks, around the grass, around that type of structure, your blueback heron is the exact opposite of that spectrum. Forest baits that I would use for the blueback heron spawn is pretty narrow actually. Now, what I'm about to say, there's far more baits that can work. I'm just saying I'm going to give you a baseline of baits that you can use that will work for you. And the number one is the good old minnow. Now we've been throwing a soft plastic jerk bait literally since the early 90s. A weightless soft plastic jerk bait. Let me say it the right way for y'all so you understand. A white fluke is what you need. Okay? You need that. You need a walking style top water. That means a sexy dog, the I'm a skimmer, um, the God, there's so many of them. The pencil poppers, the cane walker, the vixen, all these different type of walking. They're all doing the same thing. Somebody always believes the one they use is the best one, but anything that walks across the top of the water is good. Large soft plastic swim baits. I like the 5-inch diesel minnows, 5, 6, 7-inch swim baits on a jig head. They work really well. Um, Hard plastic swim baits. The one that's popular in our area for the herring spawn is the Seville Magic Swimmer. There's a lot of other handmade ones now. My friend Rob Jordan makes one called the Mag 44. It's a great swim bait. It's way better than the Seville. You can throw it farther. It's bigger profile. It really it makes a difference. What else should you use? Believe it or not, I like Carolina rig for that because a lot of times they get silly and they just get so honed in on the bait. But I like a big bulky plastic on my Carolina rig. The bulk of the weight that I've caught during the herring spawn has been on a freaking Carolina rig lizard. It's the dumbest thing ever. I can't even believe I'm telling y'all that because so many times I pulled up behind people that are just running, gunning, 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 gunning. And when it gets late in the afternoon or late morning, the Carolina rig is the cleanup dude. When everybody's out there running, gunning, gunning, just moving, I come back with the old 8-foot leader. You know, it makes that when it hits the water way out there, 80 yards out, that catches a lot of my big fish. And it's the dumbest thing ever. Spinnerbait works good. You can find the herring spawn with the spinnerbait too. We talk about top waters, talking about that. I mean, that's really all I use. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's all I use. Don't use square bills. Square bills, any kind of crankbaits typically don't work. No absolutes in bass fishing, but I don't throw crankbaits for the herring spawn. It's top water plugs, soft plastic jerk baits, swim baits, and worms. Drop shots, Nikos, Carolina rigs. Those you need to keep those in your arsenal during the herring spawn. I'm gonna jump to the questions. And let's jump to the questions, and we'll knock those out. Mark, did you see anything that stood out instead of
I think
me
you've hit
going by?
most
Uh
of it.
oh. Hold
Um,
on, you sound like somebody punched you in the teeth or something. Say it, try it again.
oh, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, it's still sounding like a robot. Somebody, the Russians hacked your camera, hacked your microphone.
Testing.
Same thing. Is it just me? Y'all let me know. Is it just me? I don't think it's just me.
Yeah, y'all let me know.
Huh. Let me make sure it's not just me. I'm gonna take this off and see what it sounds like. Try it again, Mike.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it must be my microphone. It must be my headphones. Oh, well, I'm gonna turn it back on. See if it. Let's see what we got now.
Hey, you sound good.
Oh yeah, I got you fine now. Okay, good. I don't know. It must have been mine. Yeah, Lake Murray 100% does have blueback, Tron. 1000%. It's one of our better blueback heron lakes. Lake Murray has got them. Did you see? Let's see. Blueback heron not native to lakes. Yeah, blueback heron is. So let's talk about that. Blueback heron is not native to any of our lakes. They brought them. Think how that happened. This is a story I got. You guys can go confirm it. Do your own research. Let me. What I'm saying right now is me repeating. This is not me telling you this is the way that it happened. How we ended up with blueback herring along with striper in our lakes. I think they found out that the blueback herring, which is a saltwater forage fish, I think it got trapped in the Moultrie, Lake Moultrie, when they dammed up Lake Moultrie. Obviously, Moultrie is a part of the what river? Cooper River that goes to the ocean. Blueback herring got trapped in Moultrie, so this striper get landlocked when they dammed up that lake. They said, "Oh, this is a good forest species, and look at these stripers over here living in this freshwater all year long." Just as you said, they do travel, they do migrate up the rivers. I guess that would be in the springtime, probably about this time of the year, and then migrate back out to the ocean during the summertime. Pelagic. That's what they mean. That's why they've screwed up our lakes a little bit. So once they got landlocked in Moultrie, they started to disperse them to a lot of our lakes here in the Carolinas. Um, High protein diet, they make your fish get really big. There's no doubt about that. The fish do get big. The problem with blueback herring is they do make the fish in your body of water do really dumb stuff because the bait can be out in the middle of nowhere. Guess where the fish go? Most of the fish in your lake are going to stay at least on the main lake or go out in the middle of gosh dang 1,000 foot of water and just start swimming around, and you can't target them that good until we got forward facing. So it does make your fish act completely different. If you've got a lake that used to be a really good largemouth lake and then it ended up having blueback heron and it ended up having spotted bass at the same time, it's not the same lake that it used to be. So yeah, and blueback herring they do come from the ocean. Um, what was the did we have any questions, Michael? Did we say
I really haven't seen. I think you've covered most everything.
most just conversation?
Yeah, I mean, apparently Barty's still frozen in, and everybody's giving him a
You
hard
still,
time.
Marty? You still froze up there, dude? Surely you got it's like 80 down. I'll cut grass without a shirt today, my guy. Um, so yeah, Tron is giving
Yeah,
some guys some suggestions on what to use during
I think
what he uses during hair spawn.
you've covered the one question I saw was the difference between herring and shad. But
Looks like Tim Dotson's in here. He's talking about Jordan Falls Lake are dirty. So in Jordan Falls, Tim, you're gonna have more of a shad. You're gonna be shad spawn. I'm pretty certain. And you probably need to if I would imagine that a lot of that stuff is starting to happen there too. So Falls in Jordan, it'd probably be laydowns, riprap. I don't think you have grass there, Falls in Jordan, but I'd look at laydowns, riprap, square bill crankbait, spinnerbait, white chatterbait. A popper. I didn't talk about that. A popper can be a good one to use during the herring spawn too. Shad spawn. Let's see what else we got. Um, so my buddy, probably should have my buddy Rob talk with us tonight. So one thing I didn't realize with threadfin shad, why they call them a threadfin shad, they have like this thread on their fin. Can't remember if it's on the top or bottom, but Google it. I did. If you go back and look at one of the workshops we did this past fall, when you look at the threadfin shad, I think it's his top, his dorsal fin. It has this long thread. It's like this long tag of a fin on it. That's how you can identify the threadfin shad if you ever have a fish spit that up in your boat. But primarily speaking, a lot of times if your fish are starting to move into the post spawn periods of the year, your shad imitators are going to play, and the shad spawn is going to play into some capacity. So knowing what to look for and where the target and where what stage of the spawn that the shad is going to help you catch fish, and what they use. I like hard structure and they like grass. And if you can find those two in conjunction, buddy, you're gonna catch fish. So that means if you got grass that backs up to a seawall, if you got grass that up to some type of shell bar, some type of different bottom composition, you're probably gonna catch some fish. Um, so Tim said something about not finding any bedding bass. Tim, you kind of you uh, you already said that your lake is dirty, so you're not going to physically see them most likely, but they're going to be spawning right now. And so what you got to understanding how a bass spawns is going to dictate where you're going to fish. So even though you're not going to be able to see them, you can still find them around docks, dock pilings, the shallowest dock pilings, might be stumps, laydowns, anywhere that's really shallow. And you have to fish a lot slower. It's almost always going to be some type of presentation. The soft plastic is usually best when you're fishing during spawn. Can you catch fish on moving baits during spawn? You can. Sometimes even top waters, certain situations. But knowing where you live and that type of body of water, I would just say flipping some type of plastic, a tube, a creature, a stick bait. You just put that in your hand, and you're going to start learning how to pick away at seawall stumps. Sometimes even just bank transitions, pitching at bank transitions with nothing on it. That's a good way to catch them during the spawn. But just because it's dirty doesn't mean you can't catch them during the spawn. It's just knowing where they live and attacking that the right way. So Barty says his water temperatures tonight were 48 degrees. But Barty, don't correct me if I'm wrong. So Brian Barty lives in the Northeast, Lake George, Champlain, up in that area. He's talking about his water temperatures being 48 degrees. Now it's already mid-April. Even though that water temperature is 48 degrees, I can bet I'm willing to bet you probably can start to see some fish starting to cruise. The reason I say that is because that water temperature is probably rising super fast. I bet you're going from like you probably was just ice a few days ago and it's already 48. It's like 20 degrees most likely in just a few days. So or weeks. So I bet those fish are rising up high in the water column, and I know they spawn pretty early there. I've been there as early as first week in June, and we've already missed the spawn. So if it's April, already mid-April and water temperature is 48 degrees, we always get there in June and it's already done. They about to do it here in the next few days or weeks because there ain't no time in between there. I never get to Champlain in June and it's full blown spawn. And every once, people catch them in the spawn during the spawn in June, but it's almost always done. So a lot of stuff we're talking about, even though it's early, you're probably going to be more on time than we are now. So for my guys that live here in Carolinas, I'm actually probably a little bit behind the schedule, and I probably should have been talking about this in February, late February, early March. But for I'm probably feeding you the information right on time because this is definitely about to happen any day now. Now, for the Northeast, I don't remember a shad spawn happening up there. I think it's the Cisco's. And then what else do they have? Cisco's. I know obviously they purchased some kind of other shad forage that they have up there. Uh,
We got
let's
Toy. Coy Smith. I got a tournament on Kentucky Lake this weekend. I'm not sure what the Shad are doing. What should I look for?
So I fished Kentucky Lake last year in April. This almost this exact week. It was all spawning. Everybody caught them out on those bars on the bass were spawning, by the way. Everybody caught them out on those bars on Ned rigs, shaky head, smallmouths. They were all scoping stumps on the main lake bars. So if I was going to Kentucky Lake, you can look at my Kentucky Lake vlog from last year. If I was going to Kentucky Lake tomorrow, there's about two things I would be doing. Kentucky Lake, they have this grass called yellow flower. That's what everybody calls it. Well, it is. It's coreopsis. It's a yellow flower. You go in the bays and pockets, you can see this little yellow flower in the water. Bass spawn in that. Largemouth do. If you want to go have fun, go throw a Cinco in that grass. Okay? Go throw a frog in that grass. They spawn in that. Now, if you got a tournament, I can't remember if you said he had a tournament or he was just going fishing. If you're just going fishing, if you have a tournament and you need to win that tournament, I probably wouldn't throw no Cinco on that grass. Because that's what I did. And I caught 15 pounds a day. And 15 pounds a day won't do it. You hear me? All right. What you need to do is get out on those bars in like 6 to 12 foot of water and you look for the stumps and you throw that Ned rig with a TRD or you throw a shaky head with an SMH worm at those stumps and the smallmouth come up and that's it. And you're gonna catch 16 to 20 pounds doing that. Where I caught 15 pounds fishing yellow flower, but I had to catch like 20 fish to get to that. So those are your two options. You can, Kentucky Lake's got a lot of backwaters too. It's actually a very diverse lake. It's probably one of my favorite places to fish. There's so many things to do at Kentucky Lake. You can flip bushes, skip wacky rigs. You can fish docks. You fish in the backer creeks. You can fish uh, willow trees. You can fish the main lake for smallmouth. It's really got a lot of stuff to do. And the thing I love about it is a huge lake. Kentucky Lake is I don't know how many 100,000 acres and how many thousands of miles of shoreline. Then they go listen. Then they have the nerve to give you a whole nother Kentucky Barkley Lake that you can fish. Where you can go swim a jig and flip bushes. It is the one of the funnest places you could ever fish because there's just so many things to do there. It's got something for everybody there. So first thing I would do is I'd figure out what you like to do best and go do that at Kentucky Lake. Shad spawn, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's probably not happening yet, but it's getting ready to. Save this sermon for about 3 weeks from now. And everything I'm telling you will work at Kentucky Lake in about 3 weeks from now. But if I was you, I would just concentrate on that spawn for right now. I'm trying to get ahead of everything because a lot of times if I wait until that time when the shad spawn is actually really in the thrust of it, then it's too late. You need to know about it 2 weeks before so you can gather your equipment, get your mindset, start thinking about the places. Really and truly, most of where y'all are fishing now is still revolving around the spawn. But if I wait 2 weeks from now to start talking about the shad spawn, it's too late. It's too late. So I'm trying to give you the information a little bit ahead of time here. But whoever that was, I think it was it Corey you mentioned? Um, yeah, Corey, go down there and throw that Cinco on the yellow flower if you want to have fun. That's a lot of fun. You go throw out that yellow flower, you go to pick up on it, it's going. Take me out of here, my guy. Oh, let's see what else we got going on here in the comment section.
There was another question about Murray. If I was fishing Murray this weekend, what should I throw?
Oh yeah, herring spawn. There ain't but two things I would do if I were going to Murray right now. If I was going to Lake Murray, number one, I'd be fishing the herring spawn. Actually, there's three things I would do. If I was going to Murray tomorrow, I'd fish the herring spawn. Go to the search bar, the browse, type in blueback herring spawn. I got a whole workshop on that I did last year. Maybe I'll do another one this year. But do that. What you're going to do is fish main lake points, long, flat main lake points, or main creek points. Don't go too far back in the creek. How do I know I'm going back too far in the creek, Brian? You're going to stop getting bites. Simple as that. It ain't a mile. It ain't 2 miles. It ain't 500 yards. I can't give you math. You're gonna go in the creek, and when you're not getting any bites, you're gonna come back out of the creek, and you're gonna go back to the main lake. This is fishing, guys. There's no absolutes. But how far do you need to go? Not too far back. I know you don't like that answer, but it's the truth. Fish those points. You're gonna tie on a weightless soft plastic jerk bait. You're gonna tie on whatever your favorite top water is, big walking style top water, shower blows, Vixen, sexy dog, whatever that is for you. I'm a skimmer. You're gonna tie that on. You need to tie on a 5 inch. What I would prefer for you to tie on, because I know this works, is the one that I use. I use a 5 inch diesel minnows. You can get it at shopbelat.com if you can't find it, because you don't find a 5 inch in stores that often. 5 inch diesel minnows with a half-ounce head. You're gonna throw that 5 ounce, the 5 inch diesel minnows with a half-ounce head. You're gonna throw it up there on those points, and like it's gonna be like 2 foot, 4 foot. And you're gonna let that half-ounce just dig into the bottom. You're just gonna reel it fast as you can reel it, and it stay on the bottom. I didn't say reel it fast. You know, reel that half-ounce as fast as you can reel it with it digging the bottom. They like big baits this time of the year when they're coming off the bed. So reel it up there. You're just gonna grind in the bottom. You want it to be like just right on the bottom, off the bottom, off the bottom, off. Like you want it just kind of gliding along the bottom. You're gonna have your Carolina rig on. I have a tournament vlog in there. Just type in, go to YouTube, type in Brian Latimer tournament vlog. Let me make some notes so I can put these in the community section tomorrow. Let me make some notes. Let me find my pen. I'm y'all ain't gonna blame me for not catching no fish. You might not win, but you're gonna catch some fish, goddamn. No, sir. Well, I subscribed to Brian. I finished last in my club tournament. No, sir. Not the day you want. Okay, so this is what you want to. So I need to post Lake Murray vlog. Okay, I'm gonna post that in the community section. What else did we talk about last? Somebody said, oh, Kentucky Lake vlog. Kentucky Lake vlog. Um,
With the Lake Murray practice vlog, is that
uh,
3 years
yeah, we can
ago?
do that. Yeah, yeah. It'd be a tournament vlog too, practice vlog and a tournament vlog. I think the tournament vlog has more stuff in it about the herring spawn, because I think I didn't even actually get on that in practice. Um. Da 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 da. Anyway, top water, soft plastic jerk bait, that swim bait that I was telling you about in the Carolina rig. What you're going to do is you're going to fish all those. Lake Murray has a lot of those blow throughs. We talked about saddles, where it's a landmass, a high spot, a shoal, and then there's like a saddle connected to the bank. We got a lot of those, and the fish use those. You're gonna throw that soft plastic jerk bait. You're gonna throw that. You can throw a spinner bait too, but it's not my first choice. If it's not windy, I don't like a jerk bait. The jerk bait, I mean, not a jerk bait, a spinner bait, but I do like a jerk bait. You can catch them on a jerk bait. Hard jerk bait too, soft and a hard jerk bait. So that's what you need to do if you're going to Murray. Murray's a good lake to fish this time of year. Matter of fact, I might take one of my boys down there this weekend. Do the fry start moving out during the shad spawn? Typically, what my experience has been, you get the shad spawn, they'll use those docks. That's why they use the docks, because while the fry is still small, it'll use the shade of the dock as protection. And yes, as they mature, they will move out and go out towards the main lake, towards structure on the main lake. So yes, that is correct. Where did that question go? That was from Chuck. Yes, absolutely. Um, what should I throw? I'm a drag a worm today. So Tim says I did nothing but drag a worm today. So I don't know if I'd say drag a worm. I'd love for that sentence to say all I did was flip a creature. All I did was flip a tube. All I did was flip some type of really shallow deal. Because your fish should be spawning, Tim, I would think so, on falls up that way. Um, let's see. in 2 weeks on May 10th. I need to catch 17. What is the recipe? Barty, what's the recipe? He says on May 10th, I need to catch 17, 18 pounds. But give me some context. Where we're going, what we're fishing for, what's the context of that conversation? But I will say that, I will say this. Um, I get that process oriented thoughts going. In May 10th, where can I go that fits what I like to fish the best? More so than I need to catch 17, 18 pounds. I would try to figure out, all right, I got a tournament coming up. I'm going to look at this lake. I'm going to find what parts of this lake fits what I do the best. I'm going to go to those areas. I'm going to find where fish are in those areas. I'll go back to those areas in the tournament and I execute on what I found. Or I go back to those areas in the tournament and I adjust to what changed from when I found those fish. I think, see that process there? Because if I have that process, then I can follow it. I can use that for the next tournament, and then the next tournament, and then the next tournament, and the next tournament. And then what does it do? It builds my confidence bridge that we talked about. How many of y'all watched that? We put that in the app last week while I was gone. The confidence bridge discussion. Did y'all watch that? You need to watch that. You really, really need to watch that because I can talk about shad spawn all day long, but if you don't get that, I don't see any lasting effects. Um, the shad spawn is first thing in the morning. Do the fish stay there all day or leave completely once it's done? Okay, Jacob. So that's a hard question to answer. He's asking the shad spawn first thing in the morning. Do the fish stay there all day long or leave completely once it's done? I never said the shad spawn early in the morning. You can see them early in the morning. They stay shallower earlier in the morning. They're most active first thing in the morning. Why is that? I wanted to dig into this and I skipped over it. This is one thing that I have watched, and I do believe the moon has a lot to do with the shad spawn. I have watched this particular element. This one is pretty predictable. With the bass, I have a tough time figuring out how bass react to the moon. With shad and herring spawn, I see a lot of coincidences. I see a lot of things line up. I don't like talking about the moon and just saying that's when I catch my big ones. I don't like talking about the moon and just saying they're going to bite. Tell me why. This is something I've watched and I'm seeing this. Okay, let's think about what I just said. I said the shad's most active in the morning. Why is that? Let's look at this. Do y'all remember when we had the fall fishing academy back this fall? Do you remember us talking about length of day and how that affects where the shad is in the water column because of the phytoplankton? The phytoplankton getting up high because the days are getting shorter. Now listen to this. This all makes sense to me. If we have a bright moon at night, what does that activate? Phytoplankton in the water column is active. Phytoplankton is getting that light. The algae in the water is getting that light from the moon. What follows that plankton? The shad. So the shad's going to be more active during full moon for the light, if nothing else. So what we're catching in the morning when we get on the water at first light is the leftover activity from the moonlight at night. That's what's happening. And so as the sun rises and it gets warmer, it gets hotter, the phytoplankton just the light penetration is deeper down into the water, so they don't need to be near the surface. The only light at night is near the surface. So all the activity is up high. But as the sun rises, the sun penetration the water column deeper, and so you've got light everywhere. If I cut off the lights in my shop, you've seen this in your house. Watch this. This analogy is gonna. This I'm about to. In my church, we used to get when somebody get to shout and they fall out, they put them white sheets on you. I'm about to put the white sheets on y'all right now. It ain't about two people in this whole app to know what I'm talking about right now. And Tron is one of them. I'm about to put the white sheets on y'all. If I cut out all the lights in this shop right now, and the only thing I got is this ring light that's in front of me, where all the flies and bugs and gnats go, right to that light. That's what's happening at nighttime with the full moon. The only light that is available is the moonlight. And so all of the activity in the water column comes up. And as the sun rises and you get more light, if I turn on all the lights in the shop, then all the gnats and bugs, they go wherever. It doesn't seem as concentrated. That's exactly what's happening in the water column during the shad spawn. That's all it is. So when we talk about the moon, that makes sense to me. But just simply just saying, oh, the moon, I catch big ones. Oh, the moon, it makes the big ones come. What makes them come? You can't just say that for the sake of saying that. You got to have some type of scientific reason or process to back up what you're saying. Just saying that, that's not enough for me. That's not enough. This makes sense to me because 1 + 1 is giving me 2 in this situation. But that theory is what's why the shad is very active in the morning and that wanes during the day. It doesn't stop happening, but it's less concentrated, and you're going to have to spend more energy and effort to find it throughout the day. You can catch fish on the shad spawn all day long. You can watch any tournament where there's a shad spawn and you will see fish caught all throughout the day, but that hot period, especially if you're on a lake and you're trying to find it, is first thing in the morning. Okay. Hey, I just put the white sheets on y'all that time, covered y'all up, put you out. Y'all better be shouting right now. Oh, let's see whatever. Let's see if I got any other questions in here before we sant off for tonight. Saw it live.
So
Oh, so Brian Barty says that tournament he was talking about, he needs 17 to 18 is the Potomac, is the BFL. Yeah, we need to do our lake breakdown on that one. Barty, this is what you need to do. So the tournaments that I've fished there, this is what I need you to do in time being. We're going to do a lake breakdown. I know you and Ken are fishing that. My other guys too, if you got any tournaments coming up, my other pro staff guys, you got tournaments coming up. Make sure you send me an email, brian@sufschool.com, so we can do a get together and do just a little powwow on what you need to be doing. But Barty, this is what I want you to start doing for that May BFL tournament. Go back and look at tournament results from BFLs. It's probably always been the first, second week in May there. Go back and look at top 10 baits and go back and look at the weights and study those BFLs that have been there in early May. We always end up coming in June on the FLW tour and now the Tackle Warehouse deal. Never seen one that early in May. So first thing I would do is I would figure out, are people catching fish spawning on the Potomac during that time of the year? The areas are still going to be the areas. You only got about 4 or 5 areas on the Potomac River. You're going to fish that creek that you put in, Mattawoman. You're going to go over to Belmont Bay. You can fish somewhere at Aquia. And there's Chickamauga has been playing the last couple of years that I've been there. But these areas are huge. They're really big. And let's just say in this BFL, this Potomac River BFL, if you got 100 boats, I'm going to say 40 to 60 of them are going to Belmont Bay. And so I would like to think at May 10th that the fish are spawning here, that tournament is going to have something to do with the spawn. What I like about Belmont Bay is that whole Bay area is pretty much spawning flats. And I know that fish live in that creek. They live and they're born in Belmont Bay. Ian will be a good resource for that, I'm sure, too. He spent a time there in May. Um, if I had to guess, that creek is going to play heavy for that time of the year. Don't let those boats scare you. It's going to be a lot of boats there, and all of them will catch fish. The creek that you put in at is a good one too. Mattawoman is a good creek. The fish live there. It's got everything those fish need to live. They never leave that creek. If there's two areas I would fish, it would be those two areas in May because I know they spawn in those. The thing that we got to figure out for you for the Potomac River that I do not have experience with, but we can figure out how to get experience with it is how do bass spawn on tidal fisheries? Every tidal freshwater fishery I've been to has been post spawn in June. We need to see what the behavior is. Are those fish spawning in the backs of the creeks? Are those fish spawning on the flats in the grass? Are they using those pads, the spatted dock pads? That's what we need to get some information and intel from. So we need to go on a search for those things. So a couple things I want you to do. Research the BFL weights, top 10 baits. And a lot of times they'll even give you areas. Also look at for ABAs, ABA tournaments. And then we want to do some research on how fish spawn on tidal fisheries. And then once we know that information, then I've been in all those areas, then I can give you some information on which one of those areas are going to line up best for those things that we find out about how fish spawn on tidal fisheries. Just that we literally always go post spawn. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to break all that down. Okie dokie. Let's see what else we got going. Michael, you were about to tell me a question right before um,
Now
I started talking, I
you
think.
cover everything.
I did. Okay.
I see Tim Dodson dropping some use of AI for
Let's go.
a tournament analysis.
Whoa. Are you kidding me, Tim? You use Chat GPT for that? We'll scrap, we'll scrape tournament
Yes,
results and
so
put,
it'll go in and
oh my
scrape the
gosh.
website, and I hadn't thought about doing that. That's interesting.
Whoa, Tim, you just put the white sheets on me, my guy.
How about
Heck yeah, that would save so much time.
they're finding one that'll analyze video? Go find the video of all the tournaments and have it figure out the locations of where all the fish are caught. Um,
Unbelievable. I never thought about that. I always end up just going to MLF website and then just type in the tournaments. But yeah, I like the idea that you'd be able to find all the tournaments, local tournaments, ABAs, big bass tournaments, all that stuff. There's so much information out there for you to scour. I never thought about using Chat GPT to scour the internet for you. Holy, I'm under the pillows right now. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Man, I'm ready to go to work now. Let me do a couple of closing statements here. I think I have another live schedule for Friday. Don't even know what it's on. Be honest with y'all, I know I talked about it. I know I'm probably gonna be beating a dead horse. I hadn't really felt like talking about fishing last 3 or 4 days. Um, so I'm a little bit out of the pocket. I'm slowly but surely getting back to doing business as usual, ready to get here in the app and get working and just get back to moving the needle. We'll do another live on Friday, even if I don't have it scheduled yet. I'll get it scheduled. We'll do a 12 o'clock on Friday. Um, Wednesday, y'all make sure you're with me on Wednesday. You remember Brennan that won the Straight Up Fishing Championship. Brennan works on Monday night, so he just couldn't do Mondays. Kudos to Brennan. I love to see teenagers that are working. I was like, man, can you do the live with me 8 o'clock? He's like, nah, bro, I work on Wednesday on Monday nights. I love it. So he's gonna do this Wednesday. I think we're gonna do it 8. Is that what we decided, Michael? Do we need to do
uh,
it earlier or something?
8 would work. Yeah,
Okay. So 8 Wednesday.
and
Um
that's a
we're
3 hour
gonna
live,
do
right? With him, 3 hour.
no,
No, okay.
no, God no. No. So all those questions that y'all put in Ask B Lap for Brennan, we'll address those there, and then bring more questions to him. Uh, I like to support the kids that are fishing in the sport. So you made a lot of times y'all don't. I say y'all. I'm talking about me. We, us, the older generation thinks that somehow those kids don't want to hear from. They want to hear from you. They want to know that you're proud of them, or and so you showing up and asking questions. I promise you that will probably go a long way for them. So yeah, show up on the live on Wednesday night if you can. If you can't, just watch it. When you can. But there are a few questions in there for him on Wednesday. And then I'll do another one on Friday.
And is the round
Uh,
table then is we're just gonna skip this
yeah.
Wednesday?
So
Is that the plan?
yeah. So for Brennan, I just wanted we're gonna kind of just push the roundtable to next week, and then we're gonna do the live at Brennan on Wednesday. Okay.
And I would agree.
Um.
The Chat GPT sounds like a great opportunity to a great topic for a roundtable.
Yeah. It would be cool. Yeah, that is good. That is a great idea. Yeah, definitely, Tim. Let's bring that to the table. Bring that to the table. All right. Let's we're gonna adjourn here. I feel like there's some other things that I need to tell y'all that I'm not telling y'all, but we'll get to it here sooner or later. I'll um definitely make note of it in the community section. Okay. We do need to talk about um I had you guys nominate other app members for this next sponsorship program. I think I was supposed to announce that tonight. I just not thought about that. I'll work on it. We'll get to that. Let's revisit that. Okay. All right. I'm going to tell my kids good night for the night. All right. Thank y'all for tuning in tonight. I'll see you on Wednesday night. Brennan Meiden, our straight up fishing champion. Y'all have a good rest of your night.